Thank you for the opportunity to present to you all today, and good morning. I'll be discussing expanding contraceptive options, new methods that are on the horizon. My objectives are to demonstrate the rationale and approach to contraceptive development, describe methods in the pipeline and newly approved methods, as well as define some of the challenges to getting products into the hands of users. My only disclosure is that I work for the Population Council, a global nonprofit entity who has developed or is developing several of the products I will be discussing today. There are several options for contraception for individuals looking to avoid or delay pregnancy. This image from the CDC highlights the available options in terms of effectiveness. Importantly, not all individuals select a method based on effectiveness, with other factors such as ease of use, user control, and side effects being valued. This landscape has allowed for shared decision-making with providers to help individuals meet their reproductive health needs, recognizing that the needs of each individual may change over their reproductive life course. Despite all the available options, there remains a high unmet need for contraception. This is reflected by the persistently high rates of unintended pregnancy, contraceptive method discontinuation, and contraceptive non-use. And while improving access to the current method mix can help, many users remain dissatisfied with their options. Goals for contraceptive development include methods with fewer side effects, improved safety, increased secondary benefit, and improved overall satisfaction, while expanding the number of options available to provide choice. Additionally, there's a move toward making newer green methods, where their potential environmental impact is minimized. Methods are being developed to fill some of the gaps in the current method mix. These methods may aim to increase user control, as some individuals do not want to rely on their provider for initiation and discontinuation. There's a need to increase options for long-acting reversible contraception and to expand choice for non-hormonal methods. And while there are a few pericoital or on-demand methods for use around the time of intercourse, this is often sought by individuals with infrequent sex, and current options are limited. And those that are available have lower than desirable effectiveness. There's a huge opportunity for new methods that have secondary benefits, such as prevention of STIs and HIV. And what about the partners? There are few choices in male contraception available, leaving half the world's population limited in their ability to take control of their reproductive decisions. There are many products that are at different stages in the pipeline. A database developed by the Contraceptive Technology Innovation Exchange provides a tool to accessing knowledge on contraceptives under development. The last that I had checked, there was 243 results in this database, highlighting the multiple products in development and the diverse approaches and broad investment occurring in this arena. Importantly, many of the products will never get into the hands of users. Products fail to move along the discovery and development phases to fill a new drug application. These failures to progress are sometimes related to the science, but often related to funding. As noted here, there are multiple stages in the discovery phase before an IND can be submitted to allow the product to begin clinical trials. This is often an iterative process to identify and improve upon potential products and demonstrate safety. Even in these early stages, the regulatory strategy is developed and manufacturing practices are optimized to enable production of the clinical trial batches. Even at this stage, the processes must be considered scalable and the market potential must be evaluated and warranted to develop a business case for ongoing investment. Once an IND is received, the expensive and lengthy period of clinical trials begin. Studies needed include smaller pharmacokinetic and dose-finding studies, along with larger clinical trials to demonstrate safety and efficacy. These processes require substantial investment and regulatory oversight. Ideally, the user is engaged throughout the product development life cycle through acceptability and market research. Even after a product is approved, the FDA may want additional post-marketing studies to be conducted, and in parallel to getting it into the hands of users can take time, as introduction work to prepare the market and scale up manufacturing requires ongoing commitment and investment. Contraceptive developers are employing multiple approaches to fill the gaps in the current method mix. These approaches include enhancement of current methods, new delivery systems, identifying new active pharmaceutical ingredients or APIs that focus on newly identified molecular targets, and maximizing secondary benefits to offer benefit beyond pregnancy prevention. Developers must be considerate of the potential user in their developmental approaches. Human-centered or user-informed design approaches can help shape the development process and target product profiles to maximize the benefits of these methods and deliver a product that users want to use. A large number of products under development aim to enhance the currently available methods and improve the product profile. The goals of the products are to lower the risk, reduce side effects, provide longer periods of effectiveness to reduce the needs of repeat encounters, and enhance usability to reduce barriers to use. There are several different approaches being employed by developers, including lowering the doses of hormones, using potentially safer estrogens such as estradiol or estradiol valerate that may offer lower risks of thromboembolic events compared to ethinyl estradiol, using less androgenic progestins such as progesterone acetate, or changing the hormone in an existing formulation, such as using a levonorgestrel injectable instead of medroxyprogesterone. Also, developing progestin-only options for formulations where only a combined hormonal option exists, such as patches and rings. There's also use of progesterone receptor modulators or newer formulations to overcome some of the challenges within a method, such as a dissolvable implant, which will reduce the need for a trained provider for removal, or longer-acting injectables that will allow a user to use one injection for 6 months or 1 year, thus reducing the need for returning to the clinic every 3 months, or allowing for a quicker return to fertility rather than the delay in fertility that often can plague the use for depomedroxyprogesterone acetate users. IUDs are a great example where significant investment is working toward enhancing the design and altering the formulation to reduce side effects and improve safety. In development, there are products that aim to release a different API, such as indomethacin, to improve the bleeding profile, that contain lower doses of copper, use new materials such as nitinol with shape memory and superelasticity properties, and different shapes and sizes that hope to overcome some of the side effects of the existing methods. They are also using nanotechnology, for example, and integrating copper nanoparticles into a device to have a lower burst of copper release, potentially lowering the toxicity and side effects. New inserters are also trying to simplify the insertion process and reduce the risk of perforation. Injectable DMPA is among the most common methods used in many regions, including sub-Saharan Africa. Unfortunately, the side effect profile, including weight gain and effects on bone mineral density and delay in return to fertility, are an issue with these methods. Also, the need to return for repeat injections every 3 months can be a challenge to use and lead to higher discontinuation rates. Newer methods under development are leveraging new technologies to enable longer-acting formulation development to have more controlled release over 6 or 12 months, with more rapid return to fertility, which is often more predictable, and using less androgenic progestins, as mentioned, such as progesterone acetate. Several groups are working in this arena, including FHI 360, DARE, and the Population Council. Adding to the current approaches for contraception, new delivery systems offer an opportunity to change how people receive their methods. These new technologies can potentially enhance the user control and increase the duration of effectiveness. Notably, several of these are very early in development, and as novel delivery systems may encounter different challenges needed for the approval of these technologies, this may extend the time before FDA approval and market entry. I'm briefly going to share some details about a couple of these approaches to elucidate some of the exciting advances in this field. One newer approach is the microneedle patch, also known as the microarray patch. These are not your typical transdermal patches. They contain an array of microneedles built into the patch that can release drug through the dermis via differing approaches, such as dissolution of the needles or as a hollow needle to deliver the drug through a reservoir in the patch. These are user-controlled with the products under development currently for vaccination, HIV prevention, as well as for contraception. Individuals, in theory, would place the patch for a set duration, such as 20 minutes, then remove it. Products under development include a on-demand patch that would provide prevention for a 5 to 7 day window, allowing people to have a long weekend or a week protection with one application. And others that are long-acting approaches that can provide months to several months of protection. Other new exciting approaches aim to improve the options for on-demand methods, with ideally more effective technologies that may have extended coverage. A couple of approaches include electrospun-eluting fibers or fabrics, the top right picture, that can combine several molecules delivered at different doses and pace. Fast-dissolving inserts, the top left picture, where the insert is placed inside the vagina and quickly dissolves without the need for gels that sometimes can be bothersome to users. Bioadhesive films that could be placed and remain within the vagina for a longer period of time by adhering to the mucosa. The lower picture here is an example where you can continue to see the blue dye loaded film on the macaque cervix for 7 days after placement, compared to the quick dissolving one that is not visible after 1 day. And the last new technologic development I'm going to highlight is the microchip. The goal of this approach is to have an insertable device with a controlled drug release of a drug that can be turned off and on with a remote. Gates recently invested in the development of a device that will release levonorgestrel with activity up to 16 years. Yet, turn off and on when someone wants to conceive or is abstinent, and then turn back on when they're postpartum or want to resume sexual activity. While this is the ultimate of long-acting user control, it is not without controversy, as it raises concerns regarding security, contraceptive coercion, and eugenics. Moving to multipurpose prevention technologies, there's an undeniable need for MPT methods to provide protection against HIV and/or other sexually transmitted infections. In 2017, approximately 1.7 million people became newly infected with HIV. However, uptake of PrEP has been particularly low among women. STI epidemic has been surging in the US, and it continues to increase each year for multiple consecutive years. These MPTs have a huge potential for public health impact as they aim to tackle these overlapping epidemics. Unfortunately, the only multi-purpose prevention technology available at this time are condoms, which has a typical contraceptive effective failure rate of 18%. New methods aim to provide broader protection for contraception as well as activity against HIV and other STIs, and some of these MPTs under development also aim to improve vaginal health or reduce BV. It is anticipated that combining these prevention strategies will not only increase uptake of interventions that can reduce the global burden of these diseases, but also adherence, where motivation to prevent one outcome can help drive the prevention of another. Multiple formulations under development include pills, injectables, and on-demand formulations. One method, the dual prevention pill, combines an oral contraception with levonorgestrel with Truvada or Descovy, and it's believed to have a shorter route to the market as there are fewer FDA requirements needed for approval of a product where the drug constituents are already approved. This is mainly a bioequivalency study. Currently, Population Council and Viatris are pursuing this path. Similarly, with the Vaginal Ring recently receiving a positive opinion from EMA, several other MPT rings under development may be able to follow a similar path and be quicker to the market than those that are using APIs that are not already approved. As PrEP uptake and adherence has remained poor, the theory is here that the use of one product can improve the use of the other by co-formulating and leveraging the motivation for pregnancy prevention among those who have risk of HIV to promote use. And let's not overlook the group of individuals who need or want to avoid hormones altogether. There is a growing interest and investment in non-hormonal approaches, as the current options for reversible non-hormonal contraception are limited, with some methods having lower efficacy and undesirable side effects. I've discussed earlier the progress going on with IUDs to enhance this formulation. However, new targets for contraception are being sought as different pathways to prevent pregnancy. One such approach is through a vaginal ring. A couple rings under development release ferrous gluconate, or ascorbic acid that impede sperm motility. One of these approaches, Ovaprene, developed by Daré Biosciences, has a knitted polymer barrier that is believed to also physically block sperm from entering the cervical canal. This approach is now starting clinical trials through the NICHD Clinical Trials Network, so more data should be available soon on its effectiveness. There are also other non-hormonal rings in early development that employ different strategies. Oakcrest is working on a non-ARV, non-hormonal MPT ring, and Population Council is also working on an MPT contraceptive ring that has anti-chlamydial properties as well as anti-gonorrhea properties. This ring would also promote vaginal health and reduce BV risk. However, notably, these rings are very early in development. As for new methods for non-hormonal contraception, there's been a boom in very early preclinical work that has leveraged the advantages in genomic and proteomic techniques. The goal has been to identify targets, ideally those that have very specific role important for male or female reproduction, and located within the reproductive organs, for example, the testes or ovaries or on the sperm. Once these targets are identified, researchers are identifying agents that can impact the specific target and avoid non-specific activity. In theory, this would lead to a very focused contraceptive profile, avoiding unwanted effects. While there are several targets identified and being worked on, it is likely that only a few will advance to clinical testing. And what about partners? The only current options for men are condoms and vasectomy. These limit choice for half the world's population. Studies indicate that greater than 50% of men say they would be interested in a reversible method. Developing male contraception can provide an opportunity for individuals to take control of their reproductive decisions and also improve efficacy of existing methods if both partners are using a contraceptive. These methods offer an opportunity for shared responsibility, removing the burden from the sole responsibility of the individual with a uterus. Here's a clip from a recent NPR segment by Catherine Fink. This was last month highlighted, and it centers around some of the issues that emerge when we discuss male contraceptives.
I envision a world where women are using their birth control pill and the man is using his birth control gel, and together they have a very highly effective way of preventing pregnancy. One by itself will be good. Both will be highly, highly effective.
Dr. Crennan, in the run-up to the series, I had a conversation with a few of my friends who are men, and they said they would not take male birth control if it was available. Where do you think that attitude comes from, and to what extent do you think that attitude will change as medication becomes available?
Well, I think some of it is fear and fear of side effects. And I always love when we talk to couples about this and we're going over the potential side effects, and you can see the man's eyebrows go up a little when we talk about there's a potential for mood changes or feeling a little different, especially in the first few months that you're using the gel. And any hesitancy on his part is usually met very quickly by the woman of, what do you think I've been going through with my birth control for many, many years? So I think a lot of it is, again, educating men, making them realize that their jewels are no better than the woman's jewels, and that it's time for them to realize this is a part of life. And again, it will be a culture shift that I think will move relatively quickly, but it won't be for everybody. But it will be, I think, an important part of the advancement of couples being able to control if and when they get pregnant.
It's funny that you mentioned.
So I encourage you all to listen to this podcast. There are several pearls that reflect the excitement and the challenges in developing new methods. While few of the details in this podcast are not 100% accurate, the overall theme in recognizing the importance of these advances is central. The efficacy of hormones for suppressing spermatogenesis is established. Similar to women, testosterone levels in the testes that are required for spermatogenesis are regulated by the hypothalamic pituitary axis. Exogenous androgens alone, or in combination with progestins, suppress gonadotropin secretion, leading to reduced testicular production of testosterone. Low testosterone levels can inhibit spermatogenesis, however, can also lead to other effects, such as low libido, erectile dysfunction, and reduced muscle mass. And thus, add-back testosterone is often needed to reduce these symptoms while maintaining the suppression. One challenge with these with these approaches is delayed onset of action, as it can take weeks to months for the effect to be noted. Several formulations are being evaluated, including pills, topical gels, and implants. One formulation currently in phase 2 trials through the Contraceptive Clinical Trials Network is the Testosterone Gel. And early results have been very encouraging from this trial, and hopefully it will be able to enter into a phase 3 study. The male pill development has been challenged given the lack of oral androgens. For example, oral testosterone is cleared too rapidly to be effective, and methyl testosterone can cause hepatotoxicity. However, new androgens may be able to overcome this challenge. Also, these approaches are hoping to employ androgens that are not susceptible to 5-alpha reductase, which may be helpful for prostatic health and male pattern baldness. Basal gel is being developed as a long-acting, non-hormonal contraceptive with a significant advantage over vasectomy because it can be reversible. The procedure is similar to a no-scalpel vasectomy, except the gel is injected into the vas deferens instead of cutting it, as done in a vasectomy. If a man wishes to restore the flow of sperm, whether after months or years, the polymer would then be dissolved and flushed out. Basal gel blocks the flow of sperm from the body with an injection of the gel into that vas deferens. So moving forward, I want to highlight a few new methods that exemplify the progress we are making to increase options. The last column highlights the effectiveness of these methods using a Pearl Index, a statistical estimate of the number of pregnancies in 100 women years of exposure. A new pill with drospirenone offers a new progestin-only option beyond norethindrone. Drospirenone is a spironolactone analog with an antimineralic corticoid activity that offers a wider window of efficacy around each pill given the longer half-life. This leads to additional flexibility over the norethindrone that had been previously the only progesterone-only option available. A new patch leverages advances in transdermal delivery with a weekly 5-layer patch to offer consistent drug delivery. This method uses levonorgestrel, which is a different progestin than the only other approved patch, as well as a lower ethinyl estradiol level with 30 compared to 35. This is slightly larger, 28 centimeters, than the 14 centimeter patch that had been previously the only option available. A new ring offers 1 full year of protection rather than a new ring required each month. And this ring does not require refrigeration compared to the previous only available ring. It is placed in the vagina for 21 days and removed every 7 days to provide a cyclic bleeding profile. It also contains progesterone acetate, a non-androgenic progestin. And the new patch in the ring For the new patch in the ring, there is limited data on the use for obese women, and in this case of the patch, it should only be used in women over the who have BMIs under 30. And lastly, a new gel with citric acid, lactic acid, and sodium bitartrate. This gel is a pH regulator and maintains the pH between 3.5 and 4.5. One would use one of these gel inserts 1 hour before sex and then repeat with each sexual act. Further, some recent evidence suggests that the gel also has protective qualities against gonorrhea and chlamydia. So these have been exciting new advances and new methods that have recently entered the market. And I've shared with you many of the exciting things that are in the pipeline. However, despite all these advantages, there remain many challenges that threaten the ability to get these methods to users. One challenge is related to the concept of a creeping Pearl Index. New contraceptives tend to have higher Pearl indexes than methods that were previously approved. This relates to changes in the populations that are included in the studies that are submitted to the FDA for approval, and thus the calculations for the Pearl Index. Those in more recent studies have higher BMIs in general. Study durations are often shorter, where longer studies will lead to lower Pearl indices just by the inclusion of people who tend to be more adherent over time. And the inclusion of cycles where there's documented sexual activity and no other method used. And this requirement was not always in place for previously approved methods. It is even worse for on-demand products where perfect use is not always reflected in the metric. Another challenge relates to male contraceptive development. What is safe enough for a male contraceptive? Long-term safety will need to be demonstrated, and methods need to be extremely safe as users do not face the same medical risks associated with pregnancy that those with a uterus face. Thus, the risk-benefit ratio will be altered. We must consider the risks to the individual versus the potential health consequences to another individual. One approach to alter this ratio is developing methods that have additional health benefits for men. Another challenge is money. Multinational pharmaceutical companies abandoned their drug discovery R&D programs in the early 2000s. The progress I highlighted today is driven mostly by government, non-government, and philanthropic organizations. However, any new products ultimately emerging from non-pharma model will require considerable financial, manufacturing, and commercialization capabilities of the pharmaceutical industry in order to reach the market. For MPTs, there's another challenge when it comes to proving effectiveness against HIV. Designing adequate studies to show reduced incidence is becoming more challenging to ethically conduct given the effectiveness of newer approaches for HIV prevention and the benefits of ART on reducing transmission. So in summary, there's a lot of effort occurring to broaden the contraceptive method mix. These improve safety, expand options for delivery, and offer non-contraceptive benefits. This is exciting as it will lead to more choices for users and provide options for individuals who may be currently dissatisfied with their choices. I have shared some of the exciting advances in the field, however, there are many others that are also in the horizon. Yet, while we have made great strides through non-pharmaceutical channels, these successes build off partnerships. To get products to the market, we must develop viable academic, private, public partnerships. And lastly, while progress is slow and many of these methods may never reach the market, there is hope. This is an exciting time, and there are new methods that we can now offer our patients, new choices to empower individuals to help meet their needs that can shift over their reproductive life course. And hopefully, there will continue to be more options in the future. Thank you for your time, and I welcome any questions.
Really exciting to hear about the things that could be coming in the future. And I'd like to open up, if any audience members have any questions and they want to raise their hand, I'm happy to call upon you. And then, Dr. Haddad, I just want to bring up one chat that happened during your talk, a comment, I think more than a question. But the comment was that the new 12-month ring is $2,000. And I know that it's kind of a loaded question, and you certainly spoke about just how much work goes into contraceptive development. But if you could talk for a second about those finances, and then where I land is that the large majority of people are going to use birth control at some point in their life. And so how can this not make financial sense, and how can we not get methods to market that a person can afford?
So thanks for the question. So regarding the one-year contraceptive ring, the company I know has a program where they are able to support individuals to get the ring at lower cost. The average cost actually for consumers is, I think, less than $20. But that being said, there's definitely challenges with getting cost efficiency, especially for new methods as they become available on the market. They tend to decrease over time as the number of the contraceptive is increased in production. And so there's efficiency with scale. So, hopefully over time, a lot of those initial costs will go down. But it is very difficult, especially for new methods become available to all consumers. And so there needs to be some, hopeful support from other insurers or other sorts of programs that are available to reduce the cost to individuals. And what was your other question, Missy? I'm sorry.
I just think kind of the bigger picture, if almost everybody uses birth control at some point, how can this not be more financially feasible for pharmaceutical companies to follow through, and kind of why isn't it exciting to them?
So that's a great question. And, I'm not quite sure what the market decisions are of the pharmaceutical companies. I think that there's often clearly a lot of thought that goes into the risk benefit and whether or not they want to invest. And often they may have products where they're competing against themselves and feel like they may have their share. There's a lot of risk, especially with early development, that they may not want to take, where they may be more interested, and it's not that difficult once you get reassuring results from phase 2 and phase 3 trials for pharmaceutical companies to then have more interest and carry things through the NDA and actually get it out there. But there's, quite a few challenges in between, especially for earlier development of some of the methods.
Thank you. Another question from the chat. Is it safe to use the new ring continuously?
So I will say that there's data to show that continuous use of the new ring does not, that there's modeling data. So again, this is not clinical data, but modeling data that shows that it continues to be effective. So the drug level should still maintain itself through the full 13 cycles. That being said, there's never been a clinical trial looking at continuous use. I think there isn't. So I can't necessarily say for sure if there's any safety concerns, but I think overall, similar with NuvaRing, that often people were using it off-label for continuous use. There are a lot of people who are using the new ring off-label as a continuous use. And I know that I've seen it on Bedsider that it can be used continuously. And so I think there will be more data that comes out over time, especially as the pharmacovigilance is being conducted, to see if there's any concerns with that continuous use. And the hope is that there will be a continuous use study that'll add to the data and reassure individuals who choose to use it continuously.
Thank you. Do you know if the new patch, ring, and progestin-only pill are being covered by most insurances?
I do not know. I think one of the challenges with each of the new methods that come out there, insurers may only want to cover one in class. And so I know specifically for the new ring, they're working to try to create another category for the new ring, because it really, right now, it's falling in comparison to the for the NuvaRing. And so, for example, in that case, an insurer may choose to deny the claim for the longer acting ring because there's something else in class. And so if it and so that's often a challenge. And I know that the companies are all eager to get theirs in many of the insurance companies' policies, or at least get them coverage for as many people as possible. So I think it's evolving. I think it's possible for some, but not for others at this point.
And then a follow-up question about the ring. Is the 12-month ring you described in your presentation Anovera or a different hormonal combination?
So the currently available ring is Anovera. I was trying hard to not name any commercial rings that are out there, just out of, for the presentation. But yes, the commercial name is Anovera. And there are, as I said, there are many other rings under development. So there's I know that they're working to develop a lower cost Anovera right now that's utilizing thermoplastics. There's also, as I mentioned, in finishing up the phase 2 trials, there's a ring that's very similar to Anovera, but releases estradiol instead of ethinyl estradiol. And so that theoretically should have lower risks of VTE associated with it. And then there's, other rings that are out there that are progestin only as well, that are hopefully going to be making it through to phase 3 trials. So some hope that there will be more rings that come out there.
Awesome. This is my question. It might seem totally out there, but with all that we've had with the mRNA technologies for the COVID vaccine, is there anything we can learn from contraceptive development?
That's a great question. And I think that the verdict is still out. I think there's a lot of things that are potential and in the pipeline. And I think science is evolving. So the efficiencies in moving things through are lessons that I think many people can learn. I think the money that went in to the development of many of the vaccines is something that is not necessarily going to be seen in many other areas. And then in terms of the actual technology and what kind of options there could be for stimulating immune response to sperm, for example, and those sort of advances are things that people are working on. But again, there's a lot of regulatory challenges, especially with something that you want to reverse, and you're not using for something that is that you're using for individuals who are healthy that have alternatives that didn't have, for the COVID vaccine, for example, there were no alternatives. But in the cases of contraception, there may be other options. And so those things are regulatory challenges that sometimes the newer technologies may face.
Makes sense. And then I have one more question that's mine. You had commented in one of your slides about the BMI requirement for specifically the new patch, but we still have an old patch on the market. I'm just looking at what's happening on the FDA brochure, and then also with the medical eligibility criteria, which still lists the patch as a 2 for people who are obese. So I'm wondering if you could just comment on your understanding of the evidence there and what you would recommend in clinical practice.
So I think you highlighted a little bit of how the FDA is reevaluating new methods as they come through. And so for the new patch, there's a specific limitation on individuals, and it says not recommended for individuals over a certain BMI. Whereas for certain products like Annovera, it says there's insufficient data to evaluate the efficiency, to evaluate for individuals with higher BMI. And then clearly there are two issues. There's issues of effectiveness and there's issues of safety. I think for the FDA specifically, the issues of safety are the ones that created the limitation of the higher BMI for the patch. And they're evaluating things with different scrutiny. So what goes through on the label these days is different than what was required potentially when earlier things come out. So the labels aren't necessarily being readjusted, but new labels have different scrutiny. And so therefore, as the developers bring new things to the market, they're going to have different requirements and different things that will be included. So I think that overall, there's, the benefit of having CDC evaluating things in a systematic way and creating the medical eligibility criteria, I think is possibly where I would lean in terms of getting my information on what to do and what not to do in terms of what's safe for people and what's not.
Thank you. Another question from the chat. Are diaphragms in the gels still available in the United States?
So diaphragms are available. I know that they're available. I'm not 100% sure how you always get them. And I think that can vary. And I'm sure other people have had more success. It's often challenging. And then gels. So in terms of contraceptive gels, there's the Nonhormonal 9 versions, and those are available over the counter still. And there's films, there's other forms for Nonhormonal 9, but there's the new gel that came out that's by prescription only, Phexi, and that is by prescription only. I'm not sure which pharmacies carry it, but I know for more rapid, for individuals being able to get it. And that's something that you place pericoidally.
Thank you. And then we heard from Dr. Perry that the Kaya diaphragm is available without prescription and can be ordered as durable goods. Thanks for using the chat. Any additional questions?
Thank you for educating me on that, because I've always struggled to figure out how to get it.
Yeah. Okay. Dr. Haddad, thank you so much for spending some time sharing your information and getting us kicked off well here. Appreciate it.